I think that does come with a certain cost of sometimes being the first one, or being the only one, um, because you can lose your sense of uniqueness or your identity and your voice, because you have to represent a whole group. If I mess up now, I don't just mess up as Dominique, I mess up as the entire Black female community, which is too much of a weight for anyone to carry. I think my Dutch, one of my favorite ones is normaal and do you al gek genoeg, and it means, like, even if you just act normally, then you're already being like, that's unique, that's crazy enough. You don't have to perform or do extra stuff, because actually just being normal, just being human is eccentric enough. Which I think is actually quite fitting for just thought for this podcast. Like this idea of creatively eccentric. Our eccentricity is part of humanity, like part of being human is being eccentric.
Dominique's journey has taken her across Europe, from France and the Netherlands to Austria, navigating languages, cultures and identities along the way. She's lived the paradox of being hypervisible, yet unheard, and in this conversation she shares how she reclaimed her voice, embraced boldness and built confidence in spaces that weren't always designed for her. We talk about what it means to lead creatively, including running a business with her husband, and how to guide others without dimming their voices. She also shares how multicultural perspective shapes the way she helps clients tell their stories, why personal growth is rarely linear, and what living across borders has taught her about voice and identity. We also dive into the realities of monetizing creativity, how to confidently charge for your work, set boundaries and protect your worth. Dominique offers thoughtful insights into authentic marketing, showing up online in ways that feel genuine, reflective, and impactful without having to shout or perform. If this episode resonates, follow, leave a review, or you can DM me over on Instagram at Creatively Eccentric. If you would love to be a guest and share your story, register to join the guest waitlist. You'll be the first to hear when applications reopen. The link to sign up will be in the show notes.
I am Dominique Van Werkhoven. That's a Dutch surname. My husband is Dutch, and I actually became Dutch about 3 or 4 years ago. So I have now dual citizenship, and I am a copywriter, a website copywriter for impact-led small businesses, freelancers, and I do that in the business that I run together with my husband.
That sounds very busy, very very involved.
Yes. Yeah, we also have 3 little boys, so that also keeps us busy. So we kind of sometimes joke that we are the co-founders of 3 kids and a business. And yeah, it's we spend a lot of time together, of course, also being married. But it actually works. It works quite well because we're not the same. Like, so people think, oh, but do you do everything the same? Do you always agree with each other? And it's like, no, actually, we're quite different, but in that different, it just we work well together, to kind of get the job done, get the project done, get the household taken care of. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. We've actually worked together longer than we've been a couple.
Okay.
So yes.
There's a question that I like to ask my guests. When you hear the words bold voices, messy journeys, zero apologies, which part of your story, your journey, does that resonate with?
And I think especially the messy journeys part, because I feel like I haven't followed a kind of a straight line in life, in my career, like I studied law at university, but then ended up working in a non-profit in France. I was planning to go to Brazil to work, and then met my husband and moved to the Netherlands. Then we moved to Austria. We were there for 4 years. Didn't end up staying longer. We ended up coming back to the Netherlands. So it's kind of, and you're always kind of going with the flow, kind of as life takes you. And it's never, I'm not sure who has got the kind of linear journey, but that messy path, that kind of figuring it out. And oh, something's changed, that feels really resonant. I think the bold voices, I think I'm learning to lean into that bold voice more and more as I get older. When I look back, I'm like, some of the decisions that we've made, some of the things that we've done or I've done, that was actually quite bold, even though maybe at the time it didn't feel like it was to me. So yeah, I think that bold voices and messy journeys resonates.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because when I asked that question to guests, they either focus, it kind of triggers something in their story they didn't really expect to talk about. And
Yeah.
it's interesting that some people go sometimes quite deep into that conversation about their journey, and some people, they never really thought about it. But it's interesting to hear different perspectives when I say that to them. So, but yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
So you said
Yeah.
you lived in different countries. Apparently you speak multiple languages. And you've shifted so many different creative spaces. Can you, what's the surprising place that you found your voice in those countries and in those different languages?
Yeah, I think for me, when you move abroad, when I moved abroad, so I first moved in France, and you're learning a new language, and you at the beginning you often feel like a little child because your vocabulary, your language structure, everything is basic, like really basic. And so you've gone from being a kind of a 21-year-old articulate person to this kind of real learner again, and making sure you understand everything. And I think really when I moved to the Netherlands, and then really was starting from scratch. So when I was in France, I had at least done French A level. So I had some of the basics. Moving to the Netherlands, I didn't know any Dutch. I could say maybe one sentence. So I was really starting from zero, and I did an intense course. It was 5 weeks long, every day for 5 weeks, and they kind of just like throw you into the deep end. And I think having to do that to try and reclaim my personality, to let people know this is who I am, and I'm trying to let you know in another language, that for me was a real kind of turning point to to kind of to find who I was, and to talk about my life in this new way. People who didn't know me, had no context, they hadn't seen me growing up, and then I was like, I get to tell you who I am. Like, this is your only encounter with me is what I share with you. And I think that is when I was like, oh yes, this is reclaiming your voice, or finding your voice is about you telling people who you are and not allowing everybody else to tell you who you are. Like, your identity comes from within, because they haven't got any other context. They haven't seen you growing up. They don't know what you're capable of. And so you need to be the
Yeah.
one to kind of share that.
Going back to because you said the surprising place that you found your voice. As a person of color, as a creative, sometimes I feel like, with my experience, I don't know if you could relate to this, that kind of paradox of being both, sometimes you're unseen and then sometimes you're hyper visibility, kind of visible at the same time. How do you feel about that when you're in these creative spaces? How do you deal with that situation?
Yeah, that is a really good one. I think you're absolutely right. So you go from, I'm also quite tall. I'm a very tall person. And so there's often, like, I couldn't sneak into a room if I wanted to. If I wanted to blend in, just sit quietly, but like my presence physically often wouldn't allow me to do that. And I remember when I was in secondary school, and my first day of secondary school, and it was own clothes day. So I walked into the classroom, and my teacher, I was year 7, so I was about 11, and my teacher said, "Oh, you're in the wrong place. Like, the sixth form meeting is somewhere else." And I was like, "Well, why do I have to go to the sixth form meeting?" She goes, "Yeah, all the sixth formers are gathering." And I was like, "Oh no, I'm here for year 7." And she said, "You're what? You're 11." And so she couldn't believe. She's like, "Oh, okay, well then take a seat. Yes, you're in my class." And I think, like, right from that moment, like, everybody else walked in and just took a seat. I walked in and I was straight away noticed and questioned, and like, it's a small thing. I'm not traumatized from it, but just being the only one. I was in my class, I was the only black girl, and so on the one hand, you kind of get used to walking into a room like, I'm probably going to be noticed, I'm probably going to be asked to contribute because of that. But then on the flip side, it's also, I think it's also this idea that you represent, like, I don't get seen as Dominique, I get seen as the one to tick the box, like, I'm the black girl, I'm the inner city
Yep.
girl. Okay, and so now you represent everybody
Whole of
who
the
fits
black
into that
nation.
category. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's not Dominique who's speaking anymore. You're this. So then, in that some ways, you kind of lose your voice because you're like, well, I have to speak on behalf of everybody. I have to give a very general view rather than a very particular view, which is my experience. And I think it's hard to navigate that, because I think in some ways I'm like, I'm glad when I can be the first, when I can open the door, and then that allows others to come through. Because until somebody's gone through it, it's hard to imagine yourself going through it as well. But I think that does come with a certain cost of sometimes being the first one, or being the only one, because yeah, like I said, you can lose your sense of uniqueness or your identity and your voice, because you have to represent a whole group. And also because then you're like, well, if I mess up now, I don't just mess up as Dominique, I mess up as the entire black female community, which is too much of a weight for anyone to carry. And so I think having to give yourself that pep talk of like, well, I'm here as me, and I can only be me. And that's a lesson that kind of, I think I'm still learning, still practicing. But then equally, I think, yeah, it's really important to have different perspectives. And often if I do think that because of my lived experience, I bring different perspective, I bring a different view on the situation, or because of the languages that I've learned, I might see things in a different way, or the cultures. And so I think it's still really valuable that, that my voice is heard and that I'm visible. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. That's very important to claim your space. And have you felt like you had to have like a strategic invisibility kind of way to protect yourself around these situations? Is the way that you felt like you had to put up some barriers before you address these issues of hypervisibility and being unseen? Is there some way you had to navigate these situations?
yeah, I'm not sure that I have figured out the barriers or the boundaries very well. I tend to be quite an open person, so I'm more like, I would like dive in and then realize, oh wait, like maybe maybe this wasn't the right space to share that, or maybe. And so I think probably one of the things that I've tried to do is community. So having other women around me, other people around me who can relate, so who are also maybe navigating the hypervisibility or invisibility kind of situation, and then learn from them, and have a space where you can share with them how it feels, so that you have the understanding, you have the empathy, and it comes from that space, which, sometimes people, they haven't had the lived experience, they can't, even if they're well-meaning, they can't offer the kind of support that that is needed. So I think that for me has been the biggest learning, is to have community, having that community around you, having those safe spaces that you can share, that you can swap stories, where you are heard and you're not trying to balance not offending somebody or explaining yourself, but you're just understood, and you're seen as yourself, because they are seen as themselves, and they know that you're not representing a whole group, you're representing yourself. And so I think finding your way into those kind of spaces is, for me, has been the best way of navigating that journey, and knowing that your story isn't for everybody. But again, like I said, that's something that I've practiced. Like, it's a learning experience. Where is it safe to do that? And when you're being tokenized, like, so if you have the sense that, oh, I'm being invited into this not because I'm me, but because I tick a box, and having the courage to say no, or to be like, okay, if you want to invite me, this is what I need to have in place, and if you can't provide that, then you don't get to have me. But I think building that confidence where you can say that is is a practice.
Yeah, so true. And it takes time. And sometimes it's a default. You kind of go into automatic, like, okay, I need to represent everybody. But at the same time, you're not being difficult. You're just trying to, focus on yourself and your own state of mind and your own peace of mind, because you can't carry everybody. I've tried that. I've tried to be a people pleaser. I've tried to fit into spaces that weren't designed for me, and it's gonna bite you in the derriere one day, because
Yes.
it
Yeah.
will. And
No.
you can pretend all you like, but I think you just need to be true to yourself at the end of the day. It sounds like we're still learning, we're still growing. It's a learning curve. I think you mentioned your biggest challenge is owning your voice and not assuming others know more than you. Could you expand upon that?
Yeah, I think when it comes, I think it's comes down to a lot of it about trust, and being able to trust your instinct, trust your voice. And I think there's a lot that has, it feels like the way that society is built is that it's to question your own voice, to question your intuition, so that you are reliant on somebody else's narrative about how you should be, how life should be. Like, this is what's normal, this is what's good, this is what's right. And you need to outsource that to somebody else telling you. And I think when you're used to, like, when you grow up and used to performing, so you're used to be like, well, what's somebody's expectations? How do I meet that? Like, you have an exam to do and you want to do well. Like, if you give the right answers, the answers they're looking for, you will do well. And I think I learned that quite early on. Again, in secondary school, there was a friend of mine, and she was like, "How come you're always getting you're always getting really good grades?" And I was like, "Well, I just learn what they need to know in the exam." And she, where her struggle was not that she wasn't intelligent, not that she couldn't learn, it wasn't smart, but it was about not giving the answers that they were, the examiners were looking for. And so I think, I mean, the whole system is flawed because it's not testing for ability, it's testing for, can you memorize and repeat? Can you conform, basically? And I think I learned quite quickly, quite early, okay, this is how, if you conform, you get an A. Hello, this is very logical. When you get A's, you get praised, like you get, so this is what we're going to do. And it's been a process of unlearning to, okay, well, you don't have to conform actually to be accepted. You can be you and be accepted. And actually that's the best way, trying to be something else or match somebody else's image of what's good is actually quite soul destroying, because you've got all these unique gifts in you, and that's what needs to come out. Like, that's where the beauty is, that's what success looks like. And so that process of being like, well, actually, what do I believe, not just what do I need to say in order to please somebody else, but what's inside me, what do I actually think, and getting quiet enough to hear my own voice, and feeling confidence that my belonging is not going to be tied to my performance. And I think that, kind of detaching from that has also been another life practice. We say, well, I belong just because I'm here.
Yeah, that's very powerful. Yeah, definitely. And obviously you've developed that and you've learned from those experiences. And have you because talk about your business and your agency work. Have you, because you work with young people who are probably have been in positions similar to what you've described, and how do they feel small or they don't feel seen? And what patterns have you seen with the people that you've worked with, or the brands that who aren't represented? Is there a particular kind of pattern that you've seen in regards to struggling with visibility and owning their own voices?
Yeah, I mean, they say that, you create the business that you needed. And I think that's very much, very rooted in our origin story. So before we started the business, we both worked, my husband and I both worked in nonprofit work with young people. And he ran a youth centre in Delft where we used to live, and that was for mostly second generation, third generation young people from migrant backgrounds, so from Turkey, Morocco, the Caribbean, and the joke was that my husband is white, blue eyes, and he when he married me, the young people were like, oh, we knew you were cool, but now that you've got your you've married this black woman, we know you're definitely okay. um, and I think what we saw there was how, the young people, when they're applying for work, for example, because of the name on the CV, that would close the door because, oh wait, this is not a very Dutch sounding name. The door would close, or they would find difficult to get work experience, and without the work experience you can't apply for a job. Or and so we saw how, because of being different, people sometimes get overlooked, that they're not taking the time to really see you as an individual because they just see your race or your gender, or and it's and so I think us seeing that, and walking alongside young people who are navigating, trying to overcome kind of, like generalizations, and be like, well, no, but okay, I am this, I am from this country, I have this background, I speak these other languages, but I am me. And please see me and not these generalizations. And so I think that really informed us when we were starting our business, was that we want to work with people who maybe feel like, oh, I'm too small to have this website, or I don't dare to speak out because I'm not a typical, that's not a typical route for me. Like I'm from this background, and creativity isn't in my culture. Or and I think for us, it was like, well, how can we support the smaller people? We're ourselves, we're a 2-person business, we're not a multinational. But I think actually this is like, it's in these small interactions, it's in these micro businesses, micro communities, that impact is going to be made, because you have direct contact with people. And so yeah, it definitely informs how we work, who we want to work with, and it's kind of a desire to take some of the things that we're learning and things that maybe big businesses are doing, but like, how can we translate that for smaller businesses? And also, I think in non-profit work, there's this sense of like, you can't be seen to be successful, or to be to be making money. You want to do good, and so if you want to do good, you don't want to be kind of chasing profit or chasing money. And our fluent thing is, well, actually no, like, it's not so much to chasing other money, it's what you're going to do with it. Like, if you are resourced, if you are well resourced, you can actually do the thing that you set out to do. But if you're not well resourced, you're going to struggle to make the kind of impact that you want. And even when you're doing fundraising work, you have to be visible. People have to know who you are, what you're doing. And so what we hope to do is to, it's kind of equip or enable nonprofits or small businesses to get funded through their work, whether that's like having a website that actually works well, or content marketing, the messaging, setting a standard for themselves that isn't just like, oh well, poor us, like, we can't be seen to be fancy or whatever. But it's like, no, like, have things in place, have the support in place, so that you can go and do the thing that you're really good at, because we need people who are doing the things that they're really good at, because I think that's what's going to make the difference.
Yeah, that's interesting, because a lot of organisations, you sounds like you've and your husband have created a base for communities like this, and people who haven't been seen to come to you and say, we understand where you're coming from. Let me kind of talk to you in a way that you understand. And more importantly, we're not going to sugarcoat it. We want you to do your best in a business, but at the same time, we don't want you to just to be a tokenism. We don't want you just because you haven't got time for that. You probably just want to get on with doing what you do well. But having that foundation that you understand where they're coming from, the struggles that they go through, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a weight lifted off their shoulders, because you don't want to be dealing with that on top of, oh, well, now we have to explain ourselves to an organization or an agency of who we are and why we do what we do. Can we just get on with marketing our business?
Yeah, exactly. And I think having the support and understanding, like, yes, we know that budgets are not unending and not, haven't got millions to throw at something, but it's like, okay, so how can we use what we have got to do the most the most possible, but also understanding that it's okay to invest in being visible. It's okay to invest in having your message go out to people. That's a good thing. That's not a bad thing, because I think sometimes there's this idea that, like, marketing is for big businesses. It's not for the small people. I'm like, no, like it's absolutely for you too. But yeah, and having support makes all the difference.
Working with your husband and working with different brands, and what you explained to me about the importance of marketing yourself as not just an individual, but as a small business, especially unseen, underrepresented creatives. What have you learned, or even your husband might have learned, about leading creatively, especially with people who feel creatively unsure or not able to have a voice?
That's probably been some of our biggest learnings. So one of the places that we worked at together was a youth event, and it was held in Germany every year, but for young people from all around Europe. And we led the small teams that were responsible for the program during the day. So, like, kind of the arts. There's like an arts team. There was an outreach team. There was seminars and workshops were given. And I think one of the things that we learned quite early on was that when people are supported, they're going to come with really good ideas. And if you can give people the space to try, but then also the support, so that if it doesn't work, or like things go a little bit differently, that they're not alone and floundering, that you produce the best results. And so, like, one of the kind of consistent feedback that we got from our leadership, from the people that we were working with, was like, you listened, like you heard our ideas, you backed us in the ideas, you did what you could to make sure that we had what we needed to execute those ideas, and we could come to you when when we had questions and we weren't sure what to do. And I think our role as leaders in that space was to support. So it wasn't just to push our ideas and like, well, we think we should be doing X, Y, and Z. It was actually to support the creative people that were in our team. Because, I mean, as a creative yourself, like a million and one ideas. And like, that's why they're there. So I always feel like if somebody is working on something, you have to trust them to bring what they can bring to the table, and your role as a leader is to make them be as good as possible, because I think that's also how you look good. Like, if they're succeeding, you're succeeding. If your goal is to put on an amazing event, or to build a great website, or to whatever it is, it's like, if the people that you are working with or leading succeed, then you've achieved. And not just for your own ideas, but for actually helping their ideas grow. So yeah, I think recognize that was our kind of thing as leadership, was like, okay, how can we support the person as much as possible? How do you not overcrowd them, but give them the space that they need, but with enough support under that you are launching them well. And I think defending, so sometimes you can, especially when there's like a limited budget, you can be like, well, you can't do this, you can't do that. And it's like, how can you defend people so that, their little, whatever their budget is, no matter how small, it's protected. Whether it's their time, it can also be their time, or it can be, if somebody is exhausted, you're like, listen, you need like this, the cause is important, but you are more important. Take the time to rest. Why don't you take the afternoon off? Like we'll find a way to cover, or we'll step in. So I think having a holistic view as well is really important, and not missing, like, yes, we want to get to a goal, but the people you are with it's really important that you take care of them, and the rest will flow, I think.
Yeah, that sounds, yeah, because I find with your leadership kind of mentality, we have the tendency to want to take over and push our opinions to, and or maybe even fix the problem. Sometimes the problem is not necessarily need to be fixed; it just needs to be understood. And
Ooh, yes.
and I
Oh,
think your
that's a
way
good
about,
one.
yeah, and I think sometimes you mentioned this a while back, that you were doing more listening and that you've learned a lot about listening. And I used to be the same. I used to like go in there, oh, I can do that, I can fix this. But sometimes, like you said, take a breather, step back, and just let them know that you're there. And it sounds like you're doing really good work in your agency, and it sounds very positive.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think there is definitely a shift, um, kind of coming out of non-profit work into for-profit work, and um, learning what it is to run a business, but actually, and then realizing there are a lot of things that the crossover is. There's lots of similarities and lots of that we can bring from our time in non-profit work into how we run our business. Like it doesn't, people I think can have an idea that corporate is very in a box and very kind of straight and not soft, the soft skills, but actually those things are really important. And I think that's probably one of the joys for me of working together with Khidr, my husband, is the different kind of like the different approaches we'll bring. So he will be very much like, really really good at the numbers, and kind of like, okay, well, this is what we're working with, and how can we make the most out of it? How can we maximize it so that people are supported and can do what they want? And then I'll also be like, okay, well, how can we look after the people the most? What the encouragements do they need to hear today? Or like, what little thing can we send them? Can we give that will support the person? And I think whatever team, if we're able to work collaboratively with people, they will bring a little something that will support the whole project. Because I think you also don't want to look after somebody or like be so focused on have they had enough rest, have they drinking, eating well, all that kind of stuff, that you lose sight of, well, actually we were going somewhere. Like you want to get, you want to put on the event, you want to build the business, you want to produce the creative work, and you don't want to miss out on that goal, but it's like, how do you get there?
Part of the conversation is called Studio Draw. It's a bit of a play on words. So Studio Draw could be behind the scenes, that messy drawer that nobody wants to talk about. What's the most ridiculous thing in your studio or workplace right now? And why is it there?
I think I don't know if this is ridiculous, but like if you can see up there, like I'm a big Lion King fan.
Oh, okay.
And I've seen it in London, I've seen it in Paris, I've seen it in the Netherlands. Like I just love the Lion King, the musical, and that's a fan. Like, so that's one of my probably my most ridiculous. Like, it's not serving any purpose except because I love Lion King so much, and so it's there.
You got to have some other passions other than your day
Yeah,
job.
it's true.
Right, the next question I have for you. What's the most hilarious or wrong assumption someone's made about what you do?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think that so I think people see sometimes if you're on if you go from not being very active on social media to being active on social media with your business, that people can assume like that means that everything, like you're just raking in raking in the cash, everything is going super well, and you're, like living the life of, and somebody was like, "Oh, you must be doing so well, like, you can retire soon." I was like, I wish. I wish that if it just meant posting on, on Instagram or LinkedIn, if that meant that your business was skyrocketing, then yeah, but no. So I think that's probably one of the things that people assumed, or have said to us, and then we've had to be like, sorry to break the assumption, but that's not how it works.
You look like you're living in luxury with lots
Yeah.
of expensive cars and
Yeah, private jet, let's go.
Exactly. Okay, the final question I have for you. What's a mistake in your creative journey that turned out to be a blessing?
So I was just thinking, like, the earlier last year, I started my own Substack, and I've been following other people's for a while, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it. And a friend of mine was really encouraging, and she's like, just just start. So I was like, okay, cool, I'm gonna just start. And I published my first piece, and it went, I got some nice responses. People liked it. Some people that I hadn't even met before liked it, commented, which was a really lovely welcome into the Substack world. But since that one article, that I think was May or June 2025, I've not written anything. And I was like, I think the mistake that I made there was, one, I didn't believe that anyone was even going to read it. So I was like, I'll just push this out there and nobody will see it, and it's fine. And so I didn't really have a plan in place for, like, what happens if somebody does like it? What are you going to do with that? And so I was like, oh, I can't, I can't write anything else. But then, because of actually that one post, I ended up being part of a group of other writers, parents, and we meet now regularly, kind of once a month, and talk about where we're at with our writing, where we're at with our Substack, with our creativity. And I'm now leading that group, but from somebody who kind of freaked out after sharing her first article. I'm not a prolific writer in that sense for my kind of personal stuff, but it opened the door to being a part of that group, which is so supportive, and allowed me to kind of use my gifts of connection and supporting others in a way that I probably I wouldn't have necessarily volunteered to do, or even been asked to do, if I hadn't shared that one piece and then run away in fear. So I think that mistake of posting without necessarily having a plan in place opened a door to something that is really beautiful, and I love being a part of now.
Yeah. Do you think you'll ever continue more Substack posts?
Yes. So I'm actually, and again, because of that group, I was able to build up and what happened. Why did I, what felt kind of scary or different about sharing this in a personal capacity as opposed to a business one? Because when it comes to the business one, I feel I don't have that, like, oh no, somebody might see it. But when it's personal, it felt like, oh, am I allowed to, and this whole thing of reclaiming our voice and that kind of stuff. And because of that group, I'm now in a place where I'm starting to write again. And so with a plan to share in the coming months more of my own personal essays and that kind of stuff. So I think being in that group allowed me to dig a little bit deeper to see, okay, what's holding you back? Why are you nervous about this? And do you need to be nervous anymore? No, like, you've got people around you, you're in communities, there are safe spaces and safe people. Okay. And then from that place of safety, I think you're able then to take up space. Yeah.
Cool. It's almost like a full circle. Unexpected place has surprised you the most. It's basically, we've just said, really, you didn't expect that situation to happen out of one article on Substack.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. And the irony is that the article was titled, it's a South African greeting. So it's like, if you say hello in in South African dialect, like it's basically saying it's like, hello, I'm here and I'm here to be seen. And so that's what I was writing about. And suddenly like, oh wait, but what if I'm seen? What happens? And that small group actually allowed me to be seen in a way that was really safe. And I think that combination of being seen and being safe gives you the confidence to be seen even more, and then a bit more and a bit more. So those two concepts I'm thinking now like really go well together. Like we all want to be seen or deserve to be seen, but also to be safe in that being seen process.
That's wonderful. I was going to be a bit silly and ask you what's your favourite saying in whatever language you prefer that you've spoken. And would you like to say those sayings in the native languages?
I think my Dutch, one of them, my favorite ones is "Doe normaal" and "Doe je al gek genoeg," and it means, like, even if you just act normally, then you're already being that's unique, that's crazy enough. So this idea that like that, what is normal, and even normality is sometimes a little bit wild. So you don't have to perform or do extra stuff, because actually just being normal, just being human is eccentric enough. Which I think is actually quite fitting for I just thought for this podcast, like this idea of creatively eccentric, but actually, our eccentricity is part of humanity. Like part of being human is being eccentric, and we've maybe tried to shy away from that. But in doing so, we've shied away from what it is that makes us all really normal, really human. I think that's one. And I think my dad's from Jamaica.
Yay, same here.
And and actually, I don't know if it's Jamaica or if it's my mom's from Guyana, and she also did, but like hurry, make bad curry. So like always being in a rush to get stuff done, and then it doesn't end up producing the goodness that you want. Like a curry that cooks over a long period of time actually tastes much better than the one that's microwaved in 10 minutes. And so I think that's another one of the sayings, like, hurry, make bad curry. This is, take your time. Good things will come in that process. So,
Excellent. That's we all have our own little sayings in our different cultures, and but they have great meaning behind it. That's mostly important.
Sure.
So Dominique, tell me, if someone wants to reach out to you by your social media handles and how they support you in your business, how would they reach out and contact you?
So we are on Instagram, and our Instagram handle is We Are The Works, but then the works is spelled with an E, because that's our surname, so it's kind of a play on our surname. And I am also on Instagram, more on my writer side, like my personal writing, and that's Dominique Tamara Writes. You can find me on either places. And then, of course, our website, theworks.nl. So it's because we're in the Netherlands, we have a .nl ending on our website. So, kind of those are good places to start finding us.
Wonderful. Dominique, it's been a wonderful conversation, and thank you for being on the pod.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, for your excellent questions. I really enjoyed thinking about that, and I'll probably be still thinking about it afterwards. So thank you so much.